Clubhouse.
Welcome back to Pod Clubhouse's continuing coverage of the 6th season of Hulu's The Handmaid's Tale. This is for the 4th episode entitled Promotion. This is Paul.
This is Caroline.
This episode was a standard, middle of the season episode. You know, we had, like we often mention, it's like getting the chess pieces in place. It felt like that a lot, especially the June, Luke, Moira storyline.
Yeah, that was definitely just place sitting.
I had some questions about that storyline in particular. Do you want to give your no spoiler or your full of spoiler disclaimer?
Sure. Okay, so listeners, if you guys have not watched this episode, please go back and watch the episode because we are going to talk about everything. We are not a recap, but we will definitely spoil it for you. So please go watch the episode and then come on back.
And my own personal disclaimer is that I have read both books, Handmaid's Tale and the Testaments, and I have no idea what's going to happen on the Testaments show, but I do know what needs to be in place in order for that show to resemble the book.
Okay.
And sometimes I'm going to mention it if it applies. Just as like a
fair warning.
If it tickles my spidey sense on if it's aligning with a Testament's starting point. How about that?
I like it.
All right, so going back to where I was starting with my questions about June, every so often we get a June that for some reason doesn't follow the pattern that the bulk of June does.
Okay, I see what you're saying, yes.
Remember that episode where she's making the crossing into Canada across the Great Lakes and she acted so oddly?
Yes, I do.
And then this episode, she's all about playing house in Alaska. She doesn't want to accept what Luke and Moira have gotten themselves into of their own adult, free-thinking volition. Forgets about Hannah until the last second. I don't know. Something about this portrayal of June in this episode felt uneven and inconsistent. Is it okay that she wanted a moment of peace with Luke and Moira, or is this just weird?
To me, I found it odd because we had just had her blow up on the train with Serena Joy about Hannah, because Serena Joy essentially puts forth this plan. She's like, you can get Luke, you can get Nicole, and you can go to Alaska and be with your mom and you can be happy and everything's all good. And, you know, this whole kind of scenario has been brought up several times before. I know you listeners of this will say, hey, Serena Joy didn't mention her mom. You're right, she didn't. But the idea of that being a perfect family that can be put back together has absolutely been shot down by June and been said multiple times. Like, what about Hannah? What about Hannah? So when she turned to Luke and was like, let's go to Alaska and da-da-da, it was like, what?
Yeah,
what are you talking
yeah.
about? I mean, you could have done that a million times over. You could have stayed in Canada a million times over had we not consistently been having the same exact goal, which was to get back to Hannah. Now, I do have to say that this for me falls under what I was talking about June in the first 3 episodes about her being very full of herself with her relationship with Nick and having a huge amount of, I thought, like, some humility needed to be introduced, which by the end of this episode we do get, and we do get a little bit of reasoning. She does say to Luke, I think I was only trying to talk you out of this stuff because I didn't want you to be hurt the way that I was every single time of like getting close to Hannah and then pulling back, getting close to Hannah, getting pulled back. And so she does give a little bit more reasoning. And she even says, like, I don't know why I said that. Maybe that's why I said I was trying to, save you from the pain kind of thing. I appreciated that. And that did give a little more context to what we're talking about if you take that from the very end of the episode. Again, she just saved them from the water park. So, I mean, some part of her is like, you guys are not equipped enough to do this. But I do think she's acting too again, like I don't know what better word. I don't want to say conceited. All that sounds too strong for what I'm trying to say. But she really does feel like she's the only person who can save everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that part feels like, I don't know, June has always been a little bit more of a team player, I thought. Did she always do this, like go off on her own? Yes, she did. But I mean, but she found usefulness in Mayday, in gathering the Marthas, or using all the different staff that she could within the house to try to make plans together, right? Like she didn't always have to be the one sole hero, I guess is what I'm trying to say. She's always been willing to collaborate and work with other people. So that part also seemed kind of weird. Like there's no one else in this group that she knows, but she's just basically like, her only two choices are either she does it or like nobody does anything. And I don't think that that's remotely realistic.
There's a TV logic aspect to this that maybe I can't really argue against, but if this was the real world, then Luke and Moira have been in terrorist camp for like only 2 months. And yes, they've become involved, but it's still only 2 months. I mean, isn't boot camp longer than that?
Well, but Moira would say that she's been, quote, training for this since they stole her back in Boston, that she's been fighting against them and being like, a part of the rebel alliance, if you will, for this entire time. So I think she would definitely bristle at that, at being considered only in it for a couple weeks. Luke's a little bit of a different story because he's just had a completely different experience with Gilead across the board. I don't know how to equate his readiness skills because to me, he never seems to take the situation quite for what it actually is. I feel like there's been, and I'm like stumbling a little bit, but it's like I can remember specific moments where me and you were like, catch up, Luke. Like
Yes.
You are so far
Yes.
behind and you are just not catching on to what needs to be happening quick enough.
Yes.
To that end, I can see where June has her question marks about why does it always have to be one of them to go? Like, why can't it be someone else? Now, as a father, do you feel like Luke had any ground to stand on when he, basically said, this is my turn to save my kid? Like, I need a time at bat and this is it. And I've planned it. And so you don't have any biz to say anything.
I understand it. I mean, the logical sense of it is not great in terms of like this action will not save Hannah.
Right. And it's not even really designed to save Hannah.
No.
Like, let's be super clear. And that I don't feel like was ever really absorbed by Luke, even though like he was like, yeah, I'm gonna have these bombs. We're gonna go to Jezebels, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, but you're, at the end, you're not gonna walk out with Hannah. That felt like contrary for her to say at the time, but it's true of the plan. The plan does not include Hannah. It just includes taking down really the first force field of commanders.
Yeah. And I mean, as we see, they have, little grand poobah ceremonies all the time.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's talk about that. Do we feel good about Luke and Moira and June and how basically they sort of ended up explaining to one another what was going on? I mean, Moira's reasoning, and I thought this was a very poignant line when she says, I'm tired of living your life. Like, I'm not going to live your life anymore, June. When I sat with that line for a minute and I thought about the fact that she has essentially been this sidekick for June, or not a part of the story. Either we don't see her or she truly is the sidekick. And when we aren't seeing her, she's supposedly living with June's husband and helping him out and also raising June's baby. So if you were June, I'm sorry, if you were Moira, I can really understand that I'm tired of living your life. I don't want to wake up and have breakfast with your husband. I don't want to change your baby. Like, this is not Moira's life. This is not my path. So I appreciated her really standing her ground with June and saying like, hey, I am just as prepared as you are for whatever's coming my way. And I can save myself just as well as you can. I just don't know that Moira's actually 100% proven that. Now, she did get out on her own. So does she get like street cred for that?
Yeah, but she still needed saving. It hasn't been totally pointed out in the show, but if you remember, Tuello had asked Nick for the patrol schedules, and that was when Nick went silent. And then
Yes.
Luke and Moira get caught by a patrol that they didn't know was coming. That's all
Uh-huh.
connected, friends. That's all the same thing. I think what you're describing, I mean, there's a couple of things that form possible plot branches in my brain here. One is with Moira. The actress who plays Moira has come out and said, no, she's not interested in being in the Testaments. And I wonder if she's just, that's just like a talking point. Someone asked her, because what we're describing here sounds like a perfect setup for them to kill her character in a meaningful last part of the season, last part of the show kind of way.
Do you think like sacrificing herself, obviously, will it be sacrificing for a greater good, sacrificing specifically for June or for Luke or for Hannah? Like, will there be a specific one for one trade? Or will it just be like in the course of her rebellious moment that she manages to do something wonderful and gets killed?
Yeah, like that. Like,
Okay.
like it's either her or June and she bars the door, or, something like that. Because something's going to go wrong with this run, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. Yes. Yes. I mean, by design. I mean, they already said like they don't, I mean, they're basically just relying on them to allow, like how she says, like, you're just going to drive up there. You're just going to drive up to Gilead. Like, I mean, it is a good point. Like some of these things that they're saying do seem awfully simplistic compared to what we know must have already happened. Like, I don't even know. They're acting like these bombs and this concept is so fresh. It's such a brand new idea that Luke has to use some bombs. I mean, hello, we've been at war as a country with Gilead for a long time now. And it seems like for him to be like, I have an idea, bombs, feels a little like, I mean, I bet we tried a lot of things. And I bet basic bombs were one of them.
Good point. I mean, maybe it's been a while since the Resistance has put on a show like this.
Okay. So maybe the guard is down.
Maybe. Like, for instance, when they opened the new Red Center and that was bombed, that was quite a while ago now.
It was actually quite a while ago.
And that was a Handmaid that did that.
Yes. So, okay. I mean, it seems like a simple plan for this stage of the game. That's how I want to say it. It seems primitive and simple. And that's kind of what I'm hearing June's complaints. Now, I don't like her extra part where she says, and if I did it, it would be just fine. But you guys doing it, it's too simplistic. I think it is a simplistic plan, and I think it's going to go wrong for whomever tries to move forward with it.
When the boss says that the army's just going to roll in after that, I mean, yes.
What?
If the army could do any just rolling in, wouldn't they have just rolled in?
With just two people or, with a basic truck and stuff, like this is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about the fact that Gilead was capable of shooting planes down out of the air, let's go back to like their ability to defend themselves. Like they're not just basic. They're not just putting a stick in the door handle. Like,
Right.
I mean, there's definitely, they
have every
Yes.
asset that was in mainland America militarily. They have every one of them.
So, I mean, honestly,
as far
guys,
as we know.
This is a very basic plan. I mean, I don't know how many plans anybody has besides break in, grab as many people as you can, create some chaos, and get out. I mean, did I just not outline every single Rebels plan from every movie or TV show you've ever seen?
But this
Just
week
break in.
we met that big bearded asshole commander.
Oh, Commander Bell.
And he seems like the kind of guy that's going to
He needs
slap
killing.
Moira's ass, and it's going to go not so great.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Okay, so let's wrap up June, Luke, and Moira. Overall, do we think that this episode made their friendship, connections, partnerships, whatnot? Because I can't really say marriage, but at this point, I would say they all have relationships with one another. Did it take a big beating here, Or is it just same old June telling them that, they don't have the magic sauce that she has, and somehow, if she could do it, it'll be fine, but if they do it, no way. I mean, what do we feel by the end of that episode?
They can tell June to F off, but June is not going to F off. June's gonna June.
So what do you do?
I mean, that could be the Handmaid's Tale subtitle, right? June's gonna June. These are all very
previous seasons.
This whole thing where Luke is all of a sudden like the bombing and logistics mastermind.
Okay, wait, can I ask you a quick question? Because I could not remember this. I'm sure we could figure this out in 1 second, but I'm going to ask you. This is going to be like on the spot trivia, and let's see if you can possibly remember this.
Okay.
What did Luke do as a job before all this, before Gilead? What was his job?
Luke Bankhole worked in marketing, not bomb planning.
Okay, and funny. Okay, so when I look at the Handmaid's Tale wiki, it lists him as, it says construction worker, and then in parentheses, TV series. This is under Luke Bankhole. So I don't know. Maybe I'm a little confused. And then it says Suffolk County Office of Urban Planning. This is what they claim his job was. Why I ask is because of exactly what you just said, not a bomb planner. I could not even remember what his job was. Like, what was his background? What was he doing all day? I remember June worked in publishing, but not knowing really what he's up to. So if he's in marketing.
From the book, I think Luke got about a sentence. So
really?
Yeah, I mean, he was toast right away. So they just had to make it up. Yeah, I think they tried to make him just a white collar guy. That was, I mean, I don't know about the construction part. I don't know
either. I mean, this is just what it says on this wiki page. Everybody can put what they want on those wiki pages, but and maybe maybe they accidentally mixed in some of the actors' actual credits with what they're saying Luke Bankhole has done, but I don't know. Basically, I don't think that Luke has much of a leg to stand on in terms of planning this, because he has no concept of what it's like in Gilead. He has no concept of what it's like in Jezebel. The true practicality of like left, right, the kitchen's downstairs, the rooms are upstairs. Just that. He doesn't know. Like everyone's gonna have to tell him everything. So I don't think he's the best pick, but I don't understand what all the rest of those Mayday people are doing and why we're not meeting any of them.
June is totally on to something with the poison. I mean, yes, there's tasters now.
They said now there's tastings, yeah.
Well, guess what? There's other ways. I mean, ask the mob. There are other ways to deal with poison than just making someone eat it.
Oh, do tell.
Just
skin absorption stuff?
Skin
like it could just be
absorption
on the cup or?
Yes, all that stuff. Little injectables.
Well, injectables, someone would know they've been, like if you wanted to do it totally clandestine and not have the person, I thought it was all about like touching, like I think it would be about that, about some sort of absorbing through your skin. Because like, I mean, the girls could do anything. If you were like in Jezebels, I mean, you could put it in the massage oil or something or whatever. I don't know what does Diddy do? What's in Diddy stuff? That's what I mean. But you're right. There are a lot of different ways to get people to ingest something that's not just so straightforward as just baked in their meal, I
mean, there's another plot branch that you could foresee is that June gets there, sees that it's rife with young women. Some of them she knows. And is just not going to let the bomb plan happen.
Yeah.
She's not going to do it. I know that she's doing a dry run, so it's not like she's delivering the bomb, but that still doesn't mean that she can't find a way to foul it up somehow. Like short circuits it by letting all the Jezebel's escorts go in some way, or does something on her own to try to take out these mysterious commanders before anyone else has a chance to act.
Okay. I like all of that. All right. So they still, I feel like by the end, these three have sort of made amends, right?
It's the kind of friendship that's going to have a bump,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, all of them would still drag each other out of the line of fire if it came to that.
Of course, yes. Let's talk about Rita and Nick for a minute.
Yeah, they just have a short segment, so why not?
So I was getting, for all of you guys who haven't listened to all of our other podcasts, we covered The Leftovers, and I got big time Jordan vibes when Rita is getting off the bus in New Bethlehem.
Yeah.
So Leftovers, like that shot was just so familiar. So
much hope.
Yes, that is what it is. That's the vibe. So I feel like Rita is taking a massive risk here, but it is really speaking to me of the level of desperation these families have to try to get back together.
For the viewer, she's like a canary in a coal mine for if this is bullshit or not.
It's got to be bullshit, right? Because this doesn't. Well, everybody understands that New Bethlehem is like a salve to try to make everything look better. It is literally like putting Vaseline on the lens. Like, it's not going to change what is really going to happen in Gilead, but it makes it look nicer.
Yeah,
it gives you some warm and fuzzies. There's something there. What did you think of Serena, like, taking Rita in and sort of acting like, oh, we're good old friends. Nick's here, all your old buddies.
Yes, Serena did a little bit of that on the train, right? Where she likes to think that we all went through something, and now that we're on the other end of it, boy, can we just agree that we all know each other. Right? Never mind the beatings and the harsh language and
how did she put it when she was on the train? She was like, "We've all been through something, or we've all participated, or something like that."
Party to violence.
It's a party to violence, right.
Kind of the same thing with Rita. Rita's trying to, like, you know that thing where, like, the person holds their hand up by the side of their face. So she's trying to do that.
Like, can I just shuffle by and get to my sister?
Yeah.
I feel like nothing good here. I mean, when Rita was talking to Nick, I was having so much hopefulness that Nick would be like, okay, so here's how it works. But when he said it would take me a couple of years to get your family out of here, and she's like, yeah, no, that's like no problem. I can wait a couple of years. No big deal. No part of me was like, this is going to happen. Like, he's definitely going to help Rita and get her family out. Like, nothing inside me felt like that. So did you believe any of this, or was this just instant?
I believe in Nick's intention. What we talked about last week about whether or not New Bethlehem whether or not Gilead would catch on to the idea that people were going to try to use New Bethlehem as like a slow drip way to get people out of Gilead, and why would they agree to that? That's exactly what Rita and Nick are talking about. Nick, if he follows through on his intention, he's going to have to be really careful. And then once he gets them, if they start going missing, they're going to see a pattern.
Well, of course. That's why it's all like, I would like to ask all of these people, like Rita, I think this is just the folly of hope, right? Like, you have this little bit inside you where you're like, maybe this can all work out. And you think this way, and it's like, there's just nothing here. There's just no way that this is going to work, Rita, and it's awesome that she got to hug her sister again, and awesome that she gets to spend some time with her, or however this is going to work. But when Rita says, okay, I'll stay then, I was like, oh, what does this mean? Because one of the things that I feel like we have been lacking this season, especially being in episode 4, is I'm feeling like we're not getting enough world building about New Bethlehem. It's still very unclear how it works. Like, do commanders live there? Do regular people live there? Is handmaid copulation happening on New Bethlehem? How does it work? Like, nobody has explained it to us yet about, like, who is living there and how is it going to be.
I know that we offline decided to not drill down on the geography of the situation, but when Nick brought up that there's a new trade route between New Bethlehem and Gilead that is so busy that they can't really monitor it the way that they need to, and that's going to be their inn. It made me think, is New Bethlehem like a colony? Like, is it like not physically attached to the rest of
I kept
Gilead?
thinking that too. I kept thinking, is it it doesn't exactly look like an island, but it could be like a peninsula. It could be like the Cape. It could be Cape Cod. Like, I don't know where they're trying to act like it is, because if we still needed to be somewhat close to Boston, that would be reasonable.
Yeah.
And yet you are extremely isolated. I mean, I think there's one bridge. And you guys who live up in the north, you can tell me for sure, but I believe there's one bridge out to the Cape. So I mean, it is very isolated, but it is unclear. And again, that's where I go to the world building. Like, they haven't told us quite enough. They've given us a couple shots of maps kind of over people's shoulders. I actually went through YouTube and tried to like watch a couple of maps of Gilead kind of things, but it didn't shed enough light to really have anything new. But I'm with you, because
where's this
does
trade
matter.
route?
It does matter. Is it like, and it's still like pretty beautiful weather. Whereas like, it seems like whenever we're dealing with anything else with Gilead, it doesn't always seem like it's snowing and like it's always bleak. But I don't know. It's like the weather doesn't help us, is what I'm trying to say with geography.
Lawrence
like, I
wears
can't
that
quite
scarf
tell.
year round.
Yeah, he wears the ascot all the time. He's always chilly. He's got to chill.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so that's our Rita and Nick situation right now, is that we are sort of in this like handshake deal that somehow Nick is going to bring her family back. I feel like this is an act of supreme desperation from Rita, because I really do not feel that there's anything on the inside of her that thinks this is actually going to work. It's just, this is as good as it gets. And sometimes what you and I have found is that some of the most well-written shows tend to have a lot of like parallels between storylines. So I do think that like Rita's very simplistic plan of just showing up at New Bethlehem and somehow my sister's going to walk out with me feels very similar to Luke being like, I'm just going to drive up with a box truck full of bombs and that's how we're going to save the day. Like, it all seems too basic and too simple. And it's like, even as the audience, we're all kind of looking at our characters like side-eyed, like, but all of you know this is too simple, right, Rita? Right, Luke? Right, Moira? Like, all of you know this isn't how Gilead works. So what are you doing, you know? And I have a lot more questions than answers in this episode.
Do you have any questions about Wharton's intentions with Serena Joy? Or does that seem pretty obvious by now?
I think it's pretty obvious by now. And I think that she has reciprocated as well with her pie delivery. Yeah. So I
Lady brings you a pie.
The wooing is going on between the two of these two. Okay. There's some serious wooage. I am going to be doing a separate podcast from this podcast talking about an event that I went to at the Paley Center in New York, where I got to see a whole Handmaid's amazing installation. They had live handmaids walking around. It was really wild. Elizabeth Moss was there and Bradley Whitford was there. And I want to talk to you guys about some of those exhibits, but I'm not going to put them in one of the episodes because there are going to be a lot of spoiler stuff that I got to see in the exhibits that I want to be very thoughtful about. And some of that does revolve around scenes that they showed in still pictures and in costuming of future episodes. So I know a couple of things that are coming down the pike, and I won't tease you guys too much about it. Except to say that this relationship definitely has feet. It's 100% moving forward. I do not view this as any type of actual love. I view this 100% as two people figuring out how to marry kingdoms, if you will. She's New Bethlehem. He's Washington, D.C., which, if you guys remember, that was the mega commander's insanity there. That, if you guys all remember, that's the sewn lips shut group.
Right, yeah.
So he comes from them. When you think about what is in store for Serena, it is absolutely nothing good, because there is no way, for all of his hot talk about, I'm gonna, I loved how he phrased it, like he wasn't trying to say how great he was, but he was trying to say how much better he'd be than Fred.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he shit on Fred a couple of times. That
was his entire flirtation, though. Was like, hey, I don't want to make a big deal, but like, I'm a lot better than your dead husband. And it's like a little like, okay. And it's like, what has Fred done for you lately besides hang from a tree? Like, nothing, like, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, he took some specific tact with her, really massaging her ego.
I've wanted you for a while.
Yeah. And doesn't it actually seem like they flipped it on its head? Because isn't this sometimes, I feel like, we hear this a little bit more in this dynamic I feel like he has so much power and she is so power hungry, and vice versa too, because she holds a lot of power in New Bethlehem and with Lawrence and stuff, and he's so hungry for that power and so hungry for power over Nick and power over New Bethlehem in general. I mean, when I see them talking, I was trying to think if I could find any example, and you would be a way better brain for this than me, of watching villains fall in love. And what do you do as an audience member when you have two villains who you really don't want to cheer for either of them, and you don't really want to cheer for their love story, and there is no happy ending because you know they're the villains. And so it's like, how as audience members do we absorb a villain love story?
Yeah, it's never portrayed in the same way as a heroic love story. It's never like Dread Pirate Wesley and Robin Wright. It's people that are undesirables, and but in this case, they're not exactly undesirables. They're just what would you call it?
I mean, they certainly are undesirables to most of the partners in the world. Aren't going to choose this person as their partner, so they are in that regard. I mean, they do have a very slim, shallow pool of people who are willingly going to become their partners.
See, where I thought you were headed is that you were onto something with his position. Like last season,
In DC, you mean?
Yeah, Lawrence
Okay.
knew that his lack of a wife made him vulnerable. And so he just basically got himself one.
Yes, in Naomi.
Now,
And previous.
now Wharton has been a widower for, it sounds like, years, quite a while.
It does, which seems weird, doesn't it?
Maybe long enough that he kind of grandfathered in to Gilead.
Maybe so. She must have died right away. Or didn't she? They say Rose was very young.
Yeah. And they wanted more kids. And so they
How
were
old
like,
do you think Rose is supposed to be? Like 20, 18?
at most 20,
At
right?
most 20. Okay.
Don't you think?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of this of what I'm seeing of with these fathers, and we're going to talk about this with the Lawrence section, I am seeing a lot of protectiveness. Like, you could look at it like, and I'm not 100% sure where you were going with this, but I'll let you continue as soon as I say this. But like the idea that like he would want to have ties to, if you look at Serena as like the queen of New Bethlehem, and you look at him as sort of the king or one of the kings of Gilead, then I feel like when I say, like, if you think historically of like the merging of kingdoms,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I feel this is. Like, I feel like this is just a true, what do you have to offer? What do I have to offer? And by getting in with Serena, first of all, he may have a place then there in New Bethlehem, although I don't think he wants to stay there. But he can keep an eye on Rose. You know, he has the ability to keep her safe, monitor Nick, do all this other stuff. And he kind of has like a reason to be there, you know, with Serena. Not that he has to. I mean, Lord, nobody's asking for his hall pass to be in New Bethlehem. But but at the same time, I think for longer term, it's a control grab completely. Just how much power can you grab if the two of us were to partner up?
And it's kind of a calculation. Is she stronger on her own? Is she stronger allying with this guy?
I think she's stronger by herself. It's hard because it's very hard. He can act as a shield, but he can also be the sword. So
That's true.
it's
Yes.
you don't know which one you're getting. Like, he could be the one to save her life. He could be the one to slice her throat. So, and Fred was always like that too, though. And that's why things like the Pinky moment and everything was such a betrayal, because, you know, you thought this idea that at the end of the day, he would shield her. And turned out, no, he was part of the group that held the sword. I mean, I feel like there's nothing good that can come of it for her. For him, imagine the attaboys you would get if you were the one to subdue Serena Joy Waterford. If you were the one who like got her back in and managed to marry her and somehow end up making her submissive again. Like, would you not be like the King Puba?
With the collection of commanders and the kind of the jocularity that we saw, I would say, yeah. I mean, if you think about like back in the day when she was getting the pinky cut off and stuff, when we started to see groups of commanders, not courtrooms, but what the rooms where they were deciding things.
Yeah, I was calling them kind of like committees. Like it was almost like they
go.
made these like small councils,
Councils, yes. They were a pretty serious bunch.
I know, absolutely no fooling around. There was no jokes in those episodes.
And if you notice, this is the episode where the wives are like, ooh, we have jewelry again. And the men are like, hey, everybody line up and get your watch. It's like we're seeing the corruption that takes down these kind of strong ideological governments, like the theory of communism works on paper, but when you apply it to a large country like Russia, it doesn't. Not for very long anyway.
Right. And that corruption always ends up
It always
invading.
does. Because people are people,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And given a little bit of power, all they want is a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, everybody's in for it. Like, I mean, Naomi was pleased as punch to get that necklace, and I mean, Commander Bell was like whooping it up about everything he's doing. So
if you remember the contraband from season 1, it was half-used skin lotion. That was the luxury.
Yeah, that's crazy to think back. Yeah. So this is what, I mean, it's just doom, Serena. I don't see anything good. I would love to think that somehow Serena, I don't know, comes to her senses again somehow, but she's not going to. Like, this is who she is through and through. Ironically, she's doing like a reverse redemption. Like, she already kind of was who she could have been in a redemption story and has come full circle to like refinding her roots as a villain.
Nah, dog.
It's true. So true. Now, talking about finding their roots and where exactly, or what type of person are they really? I am putting forth Commander Lawrence as he's been compassionate in other episodes. It's certainly many times we've seen him. He can just be pragmatic, and sometimes I think he enjoys the cat and mouse of the whole thing, which is kind of weird, but I think he does. So what do you think about his interactions with Angela? This was new and different. We had a ton of interactions with Angela / Charlotte, if you will.
I had questions, man.
Tell me, what's your questions?
Well, this book he read, The Little Princess. I don't know The Little Princess, so I had to look it up. Okay. And in the log line, the one sentence hook is that it's about a little girl who grows up born into privilege, but then becomes a servant after her father dies. It seems to foreshadow a hopelessness that he has for Angela and by extension other girls in Gilead, which is an interesting juxtaposition because of his efforts with New Bethlehem and that maybe, girls can read there and other things.
Have businesses, do business.
Yeah, and he's even said in the last episode, he mentioned to Angela something about reading, like, you'll be reading this. He says it when he's all alone with her. So he has these hopes, again, the dangerous concept you mentioned earlier, but this story and the way that he's getting emotional about reading it suggests.
And they do the voiceover at the end.
Yeah, the
even
voiceover.
Even him continuing to read over the credits.
It suggests to me that he thinks he's not going to win. That's my guess. What did you get out of his interactions with her?
Well, it's super hypocritical when you look at it, because on one hand, like you said, like, it was refreshing to see him reading to her, showing her a book. I mean, those are, I'm a reading teacher. Those are early readiness skills that he was showing her by talking about her drawing, talking about artists, talking about the book, reading the book to her, showing her the pages, not like her laying in bed and him sitting across the room reading the bedtime story. Like, he was showing her the words. He was showing her the letters.
That might not be kosher.
I think it's not. I absolutely think it's not. Like, I feel like if Naomi saw that, she would wig out. I know it's not okay. So this is the hypocritical part. He's reading a story where ultimately the little girl is going to have to just give up to this job of being a servant, right? And yet here he is, like, you could look at it like he was preparing her for that or something, but then here he is breaking the rules by having her obviously start to learn to understand letters and words and stories. Mm-hmm. So it's like he's kind of fighting against it in kind of a passive way, you know? It's fascinating. I don't know what this is. He's obviously building up her confidence. He's obviously trying to, God, Naomi was vile with her. It made me so sad for Janine, because I was like, Janine would love this little girl, and here Naomi spends all her time yelling at her. And, she was such a cute little girl, and she was every which way trying to interact. With her little bonnet. Yes. And previously she was under the desk and trying to obviously play and be around him. And I like how Bradley Whitford acts when he's around this little child actress. He says things so funny. Like, I don't know if it was this episode or the previous one where he was like, he was like, we're having a meeting. He says in this funny little voice to her. And it's very silly and it's very funny. And there's these little moments, or when he says, my real wife to her, he whispers it to her.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that was all so funny. Like, he wants this all to work out in such a different way than it is working out. It's painful because we don't have enough episodes for all of this to work out. And nobody's really got a complicated enough plan to take these guys down. So I think the very best that we could hope for, given everything that we see and listen to, we see Lawrence get promoted. What did you think of that ceremony?
I am always a little amused with the concept of a quasi-religious ceremony that sprung up like 10 years ago. Something
True.
about it just doesn't quite have the power of some sort of rite that's been around for, 2,000 years or something. It just doesn't, it just seems like, I know that they're all made up, but they seem extra made up, with swords and whatnot. It's like someone had to figure out, how do we make this have a solemnity, and all right, well, we'll give the high commanders these extra
little collars.
Yeah. And we'll give this guy a sword, and we'll make it seem like a dubbing, sort of like he's being knighted. Yeah, that'll do it.
Well, it went back to our questions when you and I were trying to, figure out what's the hierarchy here. Like, who is even truly in charge, right? Like, so now we are confirmed with this concept of a high commander.
Yeah.
But what that exactly means, like, why is so, I always thought he was above Nick and Belle and all them. So why just now is he getting this collar? And then
Wharton still seems like his boss, even though they're both high commanders.
And I don't know if he seems like his boss or if he seems like
a lot of people's boss, actually.
It's weird. I think it's much more of like a society based on like tattletaling and like coercion than anyone actually being your superior. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think the supervisors work the way you think they do. Like, I don't think it's like an org chart in the way that we would have now, because it doesn't feel like that. It feels like a lot of like who's giving Lawrence any of the money, land, resources, supplies to build New Bethlehem? Who said okay, and who gave him those resources? Do you know what I mean? Like, he has access to this stuff, but like, it's very unclear who is giving you like the approval for everything, and who do you have to convince when things go wrong, which is, I think, the bigger question. Who holds on to your neck when things go wrong? It's funny, I was watching like a little I know we don't talk politics in this, but I was watching a political show, and the man kept saying over and over again, whose neck do I get to choke? Like, when this idea doesn't work. And like, that's kind of my question. And he was asking legitimately, whose neck do I get to choke if this does not work? And that's the question I have for all of this. Like, who has the power to choke Lawrence's neck? Who has the power to choke Wharton's neck? Who is the big baddie? You're somebody who watches tons of superhero movies. Who's the big baddie?
I don't know that we have a named character that we could definitively say is a higher ranking than Wharton.
And also, I feel like we don't have any clear understanding of like when like Lawrence can give orders, obviously, but other people can give orders, and apparently they can be conflicting orders, like with the June situation. So it's a little bit confusing to me. And again, this just goes back to my very first comment when we were just started this about the world building, and just like we're kind of lost our way a little bit because we were getting very involved. Again, a love story between two villains is taking up a lot of our bandwidth, when in reality I want to try to figure out which one of them actually has a lot more power, which one of them is actually going to be able to do something when push comes to shove, and who's going to be willing to do what. Because I don't know how savage Serena Joy is anymore and how savage she can be. Now that she has a baby in tow, I think things change.
I think there have been elements to Bruce Miller's Handmaid's Tale that we have learned have been thoroughly researched and vetted out to be true representations of the way things would work given today as a starting point. And then I think there are other things that we are supposed to not overthink, but as podcasters, we do.
We kind of have to, because there's no way. Okay, how can you judge the validity or the seriousness of Serena Joy marrying Commander Wharton if you don't fully understand what power each of them holds?
That's totally fair.
I mean, we can't know how serious to worry about that relationship, or don't care about it at all, or, you know, how much stock to put in it. How much is it going to change the storyline at this point? Can it change the storyline at this point? I don't know.
Would marrying a more powerful man give Serena any kind of comeuppance that the audience is going to be like, yeah, awesome? Or is it going to be like, this guy just showed up this season?
Well, so that's something that I do want to talk about. I'm going to talk about in our little alternate content podcast, because Elizabeth Moss did address my question that I asked you back way at season 1, which was, what in the world is a happy, or we can't ever say happy anymore, like a satisfying ending for this show? Like, what is it do they want for you to take away from this as an audience member, especially knowing the testaments are coming and understanding that that is a big indicator to people who are watching that Gilead is not going to be taken care of at the end of this season. And I want to tread lightly because I know a lot of people haven't read or seen or don't choose to spoil anything. But I would say there's at least a fair concern on the table that at the end of this season, Gilead is still going to be up and running just fine. And how will most of us audience members feel who have been attached to the show now for, like, it came out in 2017, 2016? Something like that. And so, like, this has been a really long time. Are we going to be okay with just like, well, we're still fighting? You know, like, what is going to be a satisfying ending? And that's where all of these, why I care about the world building matters, because we can't know how to figure out how this world is going to actually conclude if we don't even understand the positions people hold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Nick's position keeps sliding around. Like, I feel like there's times when he seems to have a lot of power and times when he seems to have very little power. Like, I mean, he's basically just like chained at home at some points. And then at other points, it seems like he can do anything he wants. So I don't know. It's a tricky one.
Going with your testaments angle for just 1 second, I think there's maybe 3 characters that exist in the current show that we need to think about for that show, and the rest of them not so much. And it's interesting because the 3 characters are not exactly who they are in the book, but they're the best facsimiles of where we are in the show that would line up with a reasonable starting point for the book.
Are you going to choose to share those characters?
Sure, I'll tell you.
Well, you don't have to. I mean, I'm asking you. Like,
well, I think it's going to be, it's going to shape the rest of the season.
Do you want to say something like, if you don't want to hear?
This is potentially a spoiler if I'm right, or I could be completely wrong and not a spoiler. I'm just dumb. So, you know, there's a whole spectrum there.
Okay.
1, Aunt Lydia. Definitely important.
Okay,
2,
you think she's going to continue on?
I do. 2, Hannah, because there's a time jump between the 2 stories. So she becomes an adult within the society. And the 3rd person is my wild card. And with the kind of the amplification of Angela and her age, I think it's her.
Okay.
I think it's her. And given Lawrence's sad story and how that seems to resonate with a character from the Testaments, yeah, I'm gonna go with Angela
Okay.
for being that character.
Okay, so asking you, and maybe this is unfair, but I'll ask you anyway. What do you think would be satisfying at this point? Because we're almost halfway. We're getting really quickly down to this season. It's really quite fast. What do you think? What are you okay with? What would you have been okay with if the Testaments were not already in production?
Oh, if we weren't heading toward the Testaments, then I would have wanted the fall of Gilead. Obviously, I would like to see the United States of America back where they belong, but I think that's like a 0.01% chance of that happening.
I agree.
So, what else can we have? Well, we've been following June this whole time. So June surviving this, I think, is not a cakewalk. Plot armor aside, they're going to put her in some perilous situations. Like one of those branches that we have been talking about is her reliance on Nick as her get out of jail free commander.
And that all feels like it's coming to a screeching halt.
Yes, it feels like she's going to say, help me, Nick. And Nick's going to say, if I help you, I'm dead meat. I cannot help you right now. I'm sorry. That just feels like it writes itself. I don't know what the exact scenario is going to be, but it just feels like she's setting herself up and us for that. So getting out of that, whether or not she has Luke and Moira anymore, I don't know, but she does have Mom. She does have Holly/Nicole in Alaska, and that might be best case scenario for that character. Now, do I need a bunch of like other deaths to kind of amp up the stakes? Probably, someone like a Moira or a Lawrence or somebody like that, or maybe even
What
Nick.
about a Luke?
Yeah, Luke. I mean, I think they're all on the table for not making it and driving up the drama and the stakes here at the end. I mean, how do you feel about any of those characters and their longevity?
I mean, not good for anybody, really, because I feel like they're starting to take more and more risks that aren't, like I said, they're not matching the complexity of what Gilead has grown into and not only their capability, but they revel in, finding these rebels and figuring out ways to create more problems for all these refugees and all these other people. I feel like this is all just smoke and mirrors with the New Bethlehem. Like, I really feel like this is just a way to grab back people in a way that is going to be crazy. Before we're completely done, I do need to talk about Lawrence's compassion with Janine and finding out that Janine's in Jezebels and all of that. How did you feel as a guy, how he decided to choose to handle the situation with Belle and Janine and basically how he protected her?
Lawrence wasn't going to go out on a limb for Janine and arrange a truck to take her to Canada. However, this was the best he could do, right? Rather than...
So he says.
So he says. Yeah.
So he told us.
I mean, well, in that moment, I don't know why he would lie. It seemed very vulnerable. He shared the drawing where Janine wasn't being like super awesome to him right then, but not that she had any reason to be. And a more vindictive man might have been like, well, whatever. But he had that with him. He might have even brought it knowing she was going to be there. He probably brought it knowing she's going to be there since he put her there.
Why do you think you would bring the picture? Why does Lawrence almost have this need to keep all these women in a hopeful state?
Maybe it's because he knows what he did.
Okay. And somehow that's just like a little bit of happiness he can offer. So like give this picture or whatever.
Yeah, it's already broken, obviously, but that still doesn't mean that you still don't sweep up the pieces and try to glue them back together like he is. I can appreciate that. As a human that's been on the planet for this long, I can appreciate that. It's still good. It's still good kind of mentality.
I agree. And I just, Lawrence, I see constantly wrestling with how to be a good man, I guess, on some level. And I think he doesn't, I think this, I mean, the constraints of the society he lives in makes it to where like he can never be a good man. Because like he said, like, what can I do? Either you could have a fast death or a slow death. Like,
He's only
I
ever
can't-
needed to be a smart man. And that seems to be like not doing it for him anymore.
Well, because everyone else is putting out all these characteristics that he should have. He needs to be more virile. He needs to go out with the guys and be more wild and whatever. Which, to that point, I'm sorry, spell this out for me. Naomi seemed to want to kiss him in that scene. Then she brings up virility. I mean, I'm sorry, is she suggesting that they should be having sex or that he should be having sex with Jezebels?
No, with
Because
her.
it kind of.
Yeah,
Okay,
they
well-
should be consummating, but maybe they've not.
I don't think they have. I don't know. I thought that was weird because I do you remember all the hubbub with Fred and Serena? They couldn't have sex. It was like a big old deal. Remember?
It's because they had a handmaid in the house, and so
Right.
it takes a while for a man to replenish.
Yes.
And
yes.
so you can't.
No, I understand, but they were also not. I mean, I don't know, how do I say this? It seems like there was thoughts of having another handmaid in there that wasn't Janine. I mean, there was talk of having a handmaid in there with Naomi and
That's true.
Joseph. So I'm not sure. Again, this goes back to world building. I'm not sure if they are allowed to, and if that's what Naomi was saying. And is Naomi going around telling the other wives like, hey, my husband's so virile, blah, blah, blah. Like, is that what's happening? Because it doesn't make any sense.
When they placed
if they all
Janine
have
there,
handmaids.
that was when Lydia was wheeling and dealing with the other aunts. But, I mean, we've only seen Aunt Lydia a little bit, and she seems to be more like a private detective on a case right now.
She does. When she showed up and saw Commander-in-Law and Serena Joy dancing, I don't know what old Lydia's gonna do. I feel like she feels like we brought her in the DeLorean and dropped her off and in these different settings like Jezebels and New Bethlehem and whatever, and we're like, and this is what it turned out to look like, and she's like, what? Like everything is such a shock to her, that all these different parts of Gilead is like turning out this way, and the whole concept of Janine being like, dude, they lied to you, like, get over yourself. She still seems like frazzled. Like every time we see her, I feel like she's like, whoa,
Yeah.
like what is happening? And I don't know what's going on with this. So I'm not making fun out of this in any sort of way, but I do want to ask you, I don't know if something is going on with Anne Dowd right now, or if they added this to the character, but her chin is often like shaking, like trembling.
I bet that's acting.
I agree, it seems to, but I heard someone mention that they saw it in an interview as well.
Oh.
And so then I paused and was like, I wonder if Ann Dowd is having any type of issue, which then that made me kind of wonder, I wonder if that affects the testaments at all and how that would work.
Valid question. I hope
Because I don't
it's
know.
not.
I hope it's not her. I hope it's just a character
She's a very
trait.
strong actor.
And we love her. I mean, she's been in stuff that we've just adored her in. And,
Not every actor can do that sort of micro muscle control. And I think she's probably one that could. So,
yeah.
But, I don't know. I do not have a definitive answer for that.
I'm very hopeful. It's just a characteristic that she just picked up, like just a little something to do to show that Lydia is losing her connections with everybody, losing her grounding. Like she doesn't seem to really understand what's going to happen next. She feels like us, which is hilarious. Doesn't she feel like she's kind of like an audience member who's just happening on these scenes and is like, what? A villain love story? What? Janine's and Jezebels? What? It's like every time she's just turning around, she's our little avatar.
Well, it's like almost like there's like the initial crop of people that got Gilead going, but that same crop isn't going to be who keeps it going.
They almost can't be, because I feel like things have had to change. This is where Serena Joy comes in, as like, how is she going to be a part of the old guard and also be a part of this new situation? Because I think that's going to be the push-pull. I think her with this Commander Wharton situation, he is old school Gilead and sort of kind of represents a do-over, I think, for her. You know, like you could marry this guy and maybe he's going to be the one who like allows you to like see this whole mission through. But
well, Wharton got there on his own steam, where Fred was Serena Joy's husband. Right? That seemed to be his.
Does that make him more dangerous? Does that make Wharton like a far more dangerous man? Because he showed up of his own volition wanting to be there, not somebody's arm candy or whatever. Yeah. So I think while she's sitting here thinking that Fred is just this lame-o, I think she is about to find out that Fred was the frying pan. And if she makes the leap with the commander, she's going straight into the fire. This is Caroline.
And this is Paul. If you liked this podcast, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to it on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We also are admins on a Facebook group called Gilead Online. We have 40,000 members currently. We don't talk about politics. We only talk about the show, but it's an active group, especially during the run of the show. So come over there. That's where we post podcasts and other bits of interesting news related to Handmaid's Tale. And we look forward to chatting with you about it.
Look for the Full of Spoilers podcast coming soon within the next week or so about the Paley exhibit that I went to about the Handmaids, and I will tell you a little bit more about things that I saw, but it is going to be strictly full of spoilers, so please don't go listen and then come back and be sad that you know anything. It was very insightful and had a lot of interesting exhibits, so thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.
Pod Clubhouse.